I was locked out by my own mom while they plotted to take my house. But when I exposed their hidden moves and legal tricks, their carefully built scheme collapsed overnight and left them panicking completely.
I, 38, male, grew up in a house where the dynamic was clear. My older brother Nate, 41, male, was the golden child, the firstborn, the heir to everything. My parents never tried to hide this fact. They'd say, Nate will inherit the family home, the money, all of it, right in front of me. Their reasoning? He was born first. That's literally it. I was always the afterthought kid, the one who was supposed to just accept that Nate got the best of everything. For years I watched it happen. Nate got the bigger bedroom, the car for his 16th birthday, college fully paid for. I got student loans and a bus pass. My buddy Rick has seen this play out since we were in middle school. Your parents act like Nate hung the moon, and you're just some random neighbor kid, he'd tell me. He wasn't wrong. The pattern continued into adulthood. When Nate got married to his wife, Karen, my parents gave them a $30,000 gift for the down payment on their first house. When I asked for similar help 4 years later, I got a lecture about fiscal responsibility and bootstraps. Nate's career path was equally blessed. After college, my dad called in favors to get him a management position at his friend's construction company. No experience required. Meanwhile, I started at the bottom rung of an IT firm, working my way up through certifications and late nights. Dad never even asked what I did for a living until I'd been doing it for 3 years. Fast forward to last year. I finally saved enough to buy my own place after years of busting my ass. A 3-bedroom in a neighborhood I liked. The house needed work, but I spent 6 months getting it exactly how I wanted it. New kitchen, refinished hardwoods, converted garage into a home gym. This place was 100% mine. Bought with money I earned through 15 years of 60-hour weeks and aggressive saving. I felt like I'd finally done something that was just for me. My name on a deed, my rules, my life. No family strings attached. At least that's what I thought. About 2 months after moving in, my parents invited themselves over for dinner. Dad inspected everything like he was a building code inspector, making little comments about amateur work on my renovations. Mom kept asking if I was lonely in such a big house for just one person. After dinner, they sat me down with these serious expressions I remembered from childhood lectures. Son, my dad said, your mother and I have been discussing your house situation. We think it would make more sense for Nate to take over the property. I just stared at him. Excuse me? Mom jumped in. We're just trying to keep the family assets properly managed. Nate has children who need the space. You're single. It's the practical solution. What the hell are you talking about? This is my house, I said. I bought it with my money. There's no situation to discuss. Dad leaned forward, using his intimidation pose that worked when I was 10, but not anymore. We're not trying to take it from you. This is about family unity. Nate would of course let you stay here until you find a smaller place. Before I could respond, Nate walked in from the kitchen, where he'd apparently been listening the whole time. He had that smug look he's had since we were kids. Don't take it personally, bro, he said. It's just about what makes sense for the family. You don't really need all this space. I stood up. This is my home. I'm not signing anything over to you or anyone else. End of discussion. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. My parents exchanged that look they always share when I don't fall in line. They left shortly after, the evening clearly ruined for them. I spent that night pacing my house, half convinced I'd hallucinated the entire conversation. What kind of family asks you to give up your house? What kind of brother thinks that's a reasonable request? The entitlement was so absurd I actually laughed out loud, alone in my kitchen at midnight, trying to process what had just happened. The next morning, I called Rick, the only person who truly understood my family dynamic because he'd witnessed it firsthand for decades. Dude, I think my family's lost their minds, I told him, recounting the previous night's conversation. Honestly, I'm not even surprised, Rick said. Your brother's always thought he was entitled to everything you have. Remember when he tried to take your first car? I did remember. I'd saved for 2 years, working at a grocery store, to buy a used car when I was 18. Nate had wrecked his second car, the one my parents bought him after he totaled the first, and suddenly started talking about how he needed mine for his job. My parents had actually backed him up. I only kept the car by threatening to drop out of college and move across the country. Yeah, but this is different, I said. This is my house. How could they possibly think I'd just hand it over? Because you've never really stood up to them before, Rick pointed out. Not for keeps. You've complained, you've argued, but in the end, you always showed up for holidays. You always played nice. They think you'll fold this time too. He was right. I'd spent decades swallowing my resentment for the sake of family peace. This time would be different. After that visit, things escalated faster than I expected. Mom started texting constantly with guilt trips. Family should support each other, and Nate's children deserve a stable home, and why are you being so selfish? Dad would call with speeches about responsibility to the family name and thinking beyond yourself. My Aunt Susan, Mom's sister and equally entitled, started calling me too. Your cousin gave his starter home to his older brother when he got married. That's what family does, she lectured. I reminded her that her son was gifted a house by his grandfather, so it wasn't exactly the same situation. She hung up on me. Nate was the absolute worst. He started showing up unannounced with his wife Karen, who's the human equivalent of a "let me speak to your manager" haircut. They'd walk through my house pointing at things, discussing what they'd change once it was theirs. This wall should come down, Karen would say, tapping on my living room wall. We need an open concept for entertaining. The first couple times I tried to stay civil, reminding them that this was my house and I wasn't selling or transferring it. They'd just smile and nod like I was a child throwing a tantrum. We understand you're attached to the place, Karen would say in her condescending tone. Change is hard. Their kids, 8 and 10, both spoiled rotten, would run wild through my house. They'd jump on furniture, track mud on my new floors, and mess with my stuff, while Nate and Karen did nothing to stop them. Kids will be kids, Nate would say whenever I pointed out their behavior, as if destruction of property was some unavoidable force of nature. Then one Saturday, I came home from the gym to find Nate's SUV parked in my driveway, their family inside my house. They'd used the spare key. I stupidly kept under a rock for emergencies. We were just in the neighborhood, Nate said casually, while his kids were literally drawing on my dining room wall with markers. Get your kids and get out, I said. Now. Karen gave me her signature look of practiced outrage. They're just playing. Don't be so uptight. I took my key back and changed the locks that afternoon. Rick came over to help and couldn't believe what was happening. Dude, this is next level entitlement, he said as we installed new deadbolts. Document everything. Taking his advice, I installed security cameras covering every entry point of my house and started keeping records of every interaction. The worst incident happened about 3 months after I bought the place. Besides the house, my pride and joy was my '69 Dodge Dart Swinger, classic muscle car, metallic green with the original 340 V8. I'd spent 2 years restoring it, countless weekends, late nights in the garage, thousands of dollars in parts. I did most of the work myself, from rebuilding the carburetor to reupholstering the interior. That car represented thousands of hours of my life. I was in the kitchen when I heard a strange scraping sound coming from the driveway. I looked out the window and saw Nate's 10-year-old, Tyler, deliberately dragging a rock along the passenger side of my Dart, carving a deep scratch from headlight to taillight. I ran outside, blood boiling. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. The kid looked at me with this smug little smile, the same one his father always had. "It's just a stupid old car," he said, still holding the rock. I lost it. I grabbed the rock from his hand and threw it across the yard, then shoved him, not hard, but enough that he fell on his ass, looking shocked. "Get the hell away from my car," I yelled through clenched teeth. The kid started wailing like I'd broken his arm. Nate and Karen came running out, followed by my parents, who had apparently been inside the whole time. "What is wrong with you?" Karen screamed, scooping up Tyler. "He's just a child." "Your child just caused $3,000 in damage to my car," I said, pointing to the deep gouge in the paint and metal. Nate stepped up, chest puffed out. "It's just a car. He didn't mean anything by it. Are you blind?" He did it on purpose. My dad put his hand on my shoulder, that patronizing gesture he's always used. "Son, you need to calm down. Kids make mistakes. You can't put your possessions above family." I shrugged his hand off. "That's exactly the problem with this family. Your golden child and his spawn can destroy whatever they want, and I'm supposed to just take it?" "He's 10 years old," my mother said, appalled. "You pushed a child to the ground." "I pushed a vandal who was destroying my property," I corrected her. "And where were you all when he was doing it?" "Sitting inside, planning how to take my house." Aunt Susan, who had apparently also been invited to this ambush, chimed in from the porch. "This is why you're not ready for responsibilities. You can't even control your temper around children." The family closed ranks, all of them glaring at me like I was a criminal. Not one of them, not a single one, acknowledged what Tyler had done or offered to pay for repairs. Instead, they spent the next hour lecturing me about my anger issues and how materialistic I was. After they finally left, I stood in the driveway, running my fingers along the scratch in my Dart. 2 years of work damaged in seconds by a kid who knew exactly what he was doing. And somehow I was the bad guy. I didn't let it slide, of course. The next morning I called Nate directly. I want $3,500 for the damage to my car. Professional restoration will cost at least that much. Nate laughed. You're kidding, right? It's a scratch. Buff it out. This isn't a negotiation. Either you pay for the damage your kid caused, or I'm filing a police report for vandalism and an insurance claim naming Tyler. He's a minor, you idiot. Nothing will happen. Actually, as his parent, you're legally responsible for damage he causes, and I have security footage of him doing it deliberately. There was a pause. I'll give you $500. That's more than generous. $3,500, or I file the report today. Your call. He hung up. 3 hours later, I filed a police report for vandalism and a claim with my insurance company, explicitly naming Tyler and documenting that Nate and Karen had refused to cover the damages. I included statements about the pattern of harassment and trespassing. The officer who took my report seemed skeptical at first, until I showed him photos of the damage and text messages from Nate. Family disputes are messy, he said, but property damage is property damage. 2 days later, I got a text from Nate. Got your little report. Good luck getting any cop to care about your family drama. You're embarrassing yourself. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Then, about 4 months after the initial request, Nate showed up with a card from my parents. It had this sappy message about family legacy, and inside was a crude, hand-drawn family tree with my house sketched in under Nate's name. A post-it note read, "Just sign the papers, son. It's what's best for everyone." I tore it up in front of him. "Get the hell off my property." Nate's face turned red. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. We're trying to be nice about this." "There's nothing nice about trying to steal my house." "It's not stealing when it's family," he said, like that made any sense. "Think about my kids." "I am thinking about your kids. I'm thinking they shouldn't be raised by parents who teach them it's okay to take what isn't theirs." He tried to push past me into the house, but I blocked the doorway. "Move," he said, trying to sound threatening. "Make me," I replied. For a second, I thought he might actually try to throw a punch. His hands balled into fists, and his face went from red to purple. But then he turned and stormed off, shouting that I'd regret this. After that, things went from persistent to hostile. My family completely closed ranks against me. I was officially the black sheep for having the audacity to keep my own property. My parents stopped calling entirely. The family group chat went silent for me. Holiday plans excluded me. The family gossip machine went into overdrive. I heard from a cousin that my parents were telling everyone I was mentally ill and making poor decisions. The only direct messages I got were from Nate, and they weren't subtle anymore. "You're making a huge mistake," he texted one evening. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." I didn't respond. I just added it to my growing file of documentation. Meanwhile, the incidents around my house became more frequent and destructive. My mailbox was smashed in. My garden was trampled. Someone egged my front door twice. I found my security cameras had been turned away from their viewing angles. I filed police reports each time, building a paper trail. The officers recognized me by the third visit, but not much came of the reports. I kept getting emails saying investigation pending or insufficient evidence to proceed. The system works slowly, if at all. After 2 weeks, one of the officers took me aside. "Look, man, I get what's happening here. Family disputes are brutal, but we've got limited resources, and smashed mailboxes aren't exactly top priority. So I'm just supposed to let them vandalize my property?" I asked. He gave me a knowing look. "Document everything. Get better cameras, ones they can't reach or tamper with. And maybe consider civil options, restraining orders, lawsuits. Hit them where it hurts." It was solid advice. The next day, I upgraded to cameras mounted high on the house, out of reach without a ladder, with backup battery power in case someone cut the electricity. I installed a steel mailbox embedded in concrete. I added motion sensors that would alert me if anyone set foot on my property. One evening, I came home to find Nate's kids riding bikes across my lawn, digging deep ruts into the grass I'd just reseeded. Karen sat in her SUV parked across the street, clearly supervising but doing nothing to stop them. I walked over to her car. "Get your minions off my property now." She barely looked up from her phone. "They're just playing. It's not a big deal." It is a big deal. It's trespassing and you know it. She rolled her eyes. God, you're so dramatic. This is why everyone thinks you're unstable. I took out my phone and started recording. I'm asking you one more time to remove your children from my property. Something about the camera made her change her approach. She called the kids over with fake sweetness, then glared at me. Nate's right about you. You're going to regret this. That night, I called Rick. I think I need to dig deeper into what's really going on, I told him. This isn't normal, even for my family. My cousin works at the county records office, Rick said. Let me see what I can find out about your parents' property. While waiting for Rick's intel, I decided to take a more proactive approach. I checked Nate's social media and noticed something interesting. For someone who acted like he was doing great, there were subtle signs of financial strain. The family vacation they'd been planning for months suddenly disappeared from Karen's Instagram. Nate's business page hadn't been updated in weeks. Their older kid was suddenly at public school instead of the private one they bragged about. I also remembered that Nate had been weirdly vague about his construction business for the past couple of years. Whenever family asked how it was going, he'd give generic answers about expansion plans and new projects on the horizon. But I'd never actually seen any evidence of these projects. Something wasn't adding up. The level of desperation they were showing about getting my house seemed disproportionate. Nate had always been entitled, but this went beyond that. This felt like panic. 2 weeks later, I got a weird call from my bank. The mortgage department wanted to verify some information about a recent application that included my property. I haven't applied for anything, I told the woman on the phone. We have a refinance application with your property listed as secondary collateral. That's impossible, I said. I haven't refinanced anything. There was a pause. The application was submitted by Thomas and Linda Harrison. My parents. My stomach dropped. They don't own my house. I do. That's what our verification process flagged, she said. The documentation submitted doesn't match our records. I asked what documentation they had submitted. I can't share all the details, but it appears they tried to include your property as part of a family trust. Our verification process caught the discrepancy. After I hung up, I called Rick, who came over immediately with a folder of documents his cousin had pulled. What he found changed everything. The family estate, the legacy my parents kept talking about preserving, was mortgaged to the hilt, not just once, but 3 times over the past decade. Each refinance coincided with a cash injection into Nate's business ventures, all of which had failed quietly. Nate's construction company had folded 2 years ago. His real estate investment group dissolved after some lawsuit I never heard about. His sports bar closed within 8 months of opening. Each failure had been covered up by my parents taking more equity out of their home. There's more, Rick said, pointing to recent documents. They're 6 months behind on payments. The bank has started foreclosure proceedings. Suddenly, it all made sense. They weren't after my house because of some family tradition. They needed my property to bail them out of financial ruin they'd created by bankrolling Nate's failures. As we dug deeper through county records and publicly available loan documents, we found something even worse. My parents had recently attempted to take out a new loan using falsified documents that claimed they owned my house as a secondary property. The bank's verification process had caught it, but they had tried. Here's how they did it, Rick said, pointing to a notarized document. They created a fake family trust dated 3 years ago, listing all family properties including your address, even though you didn't own it then. They backdated everything and forged what looks like your signature as a trustee. Then they tried to file a quitclaim deed transferring their portion of your house to use as loan collateral. The fraud attempt was documented in black and white. They had used my address, my property details, but replaced my name with theirs on loan applications. And there was Karen's signature as a witness on several of the documents. She wasn't just a bystander, she was actively involved. I felt sick reading through the paperwork, not just at the betrayal, but at the sheer incompetence of it all. Did they really think banks wouldn't verify property ownership? Did they think I wouldn't notice if my house was suddenly part of their collateral? The desperation was obvious. Armed with this information, I contacted a lawyer specializing in real estate fraud. She met me at her office the following week, taking her time going through my 3-inch binder of evidence, photos, texts, emails, property records, loan documents, police reports. This is actually pretty straightforward, she told me after reviewing everything. They've attempted loan fraud, identity theft, and document forgery. We have multiple options. What do you recommend? I asked. She leaned back in her chair. Well, The nuclear option would be to press criminal charges. They could face serious jail time for the forgery and fraud. The civil route would be a restraining order against all parties, followed by a lawsuit for damages and attempted theft of property. I nodded. And if I wanted to keep this somewhat contained? You could use this as leverage. Threaten legal action unless they meet certain conditions, like leaving you and your property alone permanently. I thought about it. As angry as I was, the idea of my parents going to jail didn't sit well with me. Not because they didn't deserve it, but because it would cause a family explosion that would drag on for years. I wanted this over with, not prolonged. Let's prepare for all options, I told her. Draw up the paperwork for both criminal charges and a civil suit, but hold off on filing. I want to try one more approach first. The next time Nate showed up unannounced, my phone alerted me before he even reached the front door. I opened the door before he could try it. Trespassing again, Nate? Bold move considering I already have a stack of police reports with your name on them. He tried to push past me. We need to talk. I blocked the doorway. No, we don't. Everything goes through my lawyer now. Lawyer? Don't be ridiculous. This is family business. Cut this crap already. Family, my ass. You tried to steal my house and identity. The security camera is recording this whole conversation, by the way. For the first time, I saw real fear flash across his face. He retreated to his car without another word. The next day, I had my lawyer send formal cease and desist letters to my parents, Nate and Karen, and Aunt Susan. The letters detailed the evidence we had collected and warned that any further contact or trespassing would result in immediate legal action. The response was swift. My mother called in tears, claiming they'd never meant any harm. My father sent an email full of bluster about how I was overreacting. Nate didn't contact me directly, but I heard through another cousin that he was telling people I'd lost my mind and was making up lies about the family. None of them denied the fraud attempt, not one. 2 days later, I received a group text from my mother, family meeting Sunday, 2:00 p.m. Attendance is mandatory. I spent the next 4 days organizing my evidence with my lawyer. We compiled a binder with dividers, property documents, harassment timeline, financial fraud, vandalism, every text, email, and photo neatly arranged and time-stamped. I showed up with Rick waiting in his car down the street as backup. The whole family was there. My parents, Nate and Karen, their kids, Aunt Susan, and a couple of cousins clearly brought in as reinforcements. My dad started with his usual patriarchal speech about family unity and respect. Mom followed with tearful comments about how I was tearing the family apart with my selfishness. I let them finish. Then I placed my thick binder on the table. I know about the mortgages, I said calmly. I know about the loan fraud attempt using my property. I know about the foreclosure proceedings. I know everything. The room went silent. Nate's face was drained of color. My mother stopped mid-sob. I got a call from the bank, I continued. They're very interested in the falsified loan applications with my property listed as collateral. My father tried to regain control. This is all a misunderstanding. 3 mortgages to fund Nate's failed businesses isn't a misunderstanding, I cut in. Forging documents to secure a loan using my house isn't a misunderstanding. It's fraud. Nate stood up, pointing at me. You ungrateful little shit. Sit down, I said, not raising my voice. I'm not finished. I've already filed a police report for the vandalism to my car. I've documented every trespass, every threat, every intrusion. I have a paper trail a mile long, and I'm prepared to press charges on all of it. The doorbell rang, interrupting my speech. My father looked relieved at the distraction until the door opened and Uncle Robert walked in, my dad's brother who had kept his distance from family drama for years. He looked grim. Sorry I'm late, he said, then looked directly at Nate. I got your message about needing more money, but I thought it would be better to discuss it here. Nate's eyes widened. Uncle Rob, this isn't the time or place. Uncle Robert continued. I think it's exactly the right time and place. I've loaned you $85,000 over the past 4 years. Money you swore was for your business. Money you promised to repay. Now I find out you've been taking loans from half a dozen other people, including trying to use your brother's property as collateral without his knowledge. The room erupted. My parents tried to talk over Uncle Robert, but he raised his voice. I've been quiet too long about this. Your golden boy here has been running a one-man Ponzi scheme through this family for years. I kept quiet because your father begged me to, said it would destroy the family if it came out. But enough is enough. He turned to me. I should have warned you years ago about what was happening. Nate was sputtering, trying to regain control of the narrative. Uncle Rob is exaggerating. I've had some cash flow issues. You've had cash flow issues for a decade, Uncle Robert interrupted. You've never paid back a dime to anyone in this family. Your businesses fail because you siphon all the money into your personal accounts. I've seen the records. My mother was ghost white now, looking between Nate and Uncle Robert like she was watching a tennis match. I turned back to my parents. I have two options for you all. Option 1, I file formal charges. Loan fraud, identity theft, attempted property theft, criminal vandalism, harassment. The bank freezes all accounts while they investigate. The house goes into immediate foreclosure. Nate and Dad likely face criminal charges. Aunt Susan gasped. Karen started crying. Option 2, I continued. You all leave me alone completely. No calls, no visits, no texts, no more family tradition talk, no more demands. My house remains mine and you all stay away from it and from me forever. You can't just cut off your family, my mother said, but her voice had lost its manipulative edge. Watch me, I replied. I'll give you until tomorrow to decide. If I don't hear that you've chosen option 2, I'll assume you want option 1. I stood up to leave. Nate blocked my path. You think you're so smart, he hissed. You've always been jealous. I laughed in his face. Jealous of what? Your failed businesses? Your mountain of debt? Your inability to support your family without mommy and daddy bailing you out? Move. As I reached the door, my father called out, Son, please, we can work this out. I turned back. You had years to work this out. You chose Nate every time. Now I'm choosing myself. Uncle Robert followed me out. I'm filing my own claim against Nate, he said quietly. I've got canceled checks, promissory notes, everything. Should have done it years ago. Why didn't you? I asked. Family loyalty, he said with a bitter laugh. Stupidest reason in the world to let someone rob you blind. As we walked to our cars, he handed me a folder. These are copies of every loan I gave Nate, with the dates and his promises about repayment. Use them if you need to. I nodded. Thanks for coming today. The next morning, I received a text from my mother. We choose option 2. Sure they did. But I chose option 1. I didn't respond. Instead, I contacted my lawyer and had her start the process, filing documentation about the attempted fraud with the bank, a civil claim for damages to my car against Nate and Karen as parents, and a request for a restraining order against the immediate family. Are you sure you want to go through with all of this? My lawyer asked. They've agreed to your terms. They've agreed to things before, I told her. I'm not taking any chances this time. File everything. After that, things went quiet for a while. I kept checking my mailbox for court dates or responses to the filings, but the legal system moves at its own pace. Weeks turned into months. Life went on. I doubled down on work, picking up extra projects and earning a reputation as the guy who could solve the problems no one else wanted to touch. The promotion I'd been chasing for 2 years finally came through. Senior architect with a 20% salary bump in stock options. My boss cited my methodical approach to complex problems as the reason. If he only knew how much practice I'd had. I also focused on my house, finishing all the renovations I'd planned, new roof, updated plumbing, smart home features throughout. The place was becoming exactly what I'd envisioned. 4 months after our confrontation, I got a plain manila envelope in the mail. Inside was a judgment for the car damage, $3,500 plus $800 in legal fees. Nate and Karen were ordered to pay, but the judgment didn't come with an enforcement mechanism. Actually collecting would be another battle. Around the same time, I heard through the family grapevine that Uncle Robert had won his case against Nate, an $85,000 judgment, plus interest and legal fees. Nate had apparently tried to claim the money was a gift, but Uncle Robert's meticulous documentation proved otherwise. According to my cousin Dave, Nate had shown up to court unprepared, expecting the family connection to save him. It didn't. I learned through the family grapevine that things were falling apart for them. Nate's latest business venture quietly closed its doors. No big bankruptcy announcement, just a for lease sign in the window one day. Karen lost her job at the real estate firm, not in some public firing, but through a vague LinkedIn update about seeking new opportunities. Word was that someone had mentioned the attempted fraud to her boss, and she was quietly let go to avoid any association with mortgage impropriety. My parents started dodging calls from family members they'd borrowed money from. They stopped showing up at the country club. Their cars disappeared, replaced by much older models. The foreclosure proceeded without fanfare, just a listing on the county website and later a realtor's sign in their yard. The restraining order was granted after 2 rescheduled hearings and a stack of paperwork. When the official notice finally arrived, it felt anticlimactic, just a document stating they legally had to stay 500 feet away from me and my property. 6 months after the big confrontation, I got a voicemail from Nate. His voice was subdued, none of the usual bluster. "Hey, it's me. I know you probably don't want to talk, but things are tight right now. We're staying with Karen's parents, but it's not going well. The kids are having a hard time. I was wondering if maybe we could work something out." I deleted it without responding. The bank formally charged my parents with attempted loan fraud. They avoided jail time but received probation and hefty fines. Their reputations, which they'd always been obsessed with maintaining, were in tatters. I ran into my mother at the grocery store 6 months later. She looked 10 years older, wearing clothes I didn't recognize, cheap or worn. She started to approach me, then stopped, remembering the restraining order. "Son, we need help," she called across the aisle. "We have nowhere to go." I looked at her, and she seemed confused. "We're family." "Yeah," I said. "We're not. But we have nowhere to go," she repeated. After making me fight for every scrap my entire life. After watching me work 3 jobs to put myself through college while you paid Nate's tuition. After trying to take the one thing I built for myself. "You expect me to bail you out now?" Her face hardened. "After everything we did for you?" I cut her off with a laugh. "Shut up. Don't you dare claim you did anything for me. You gave me nothing but suffering." "Wow, didn't know you became this heartless," she said. "Goodbye, Mom." I watched her walk away, felt nothing. My last interaction with Nate came about 9 months after everything went down. He showed up at my workplace, somehow having discovered where my office was located. Security called up to warn me that someone claiming to be my brother was in the lobby, causing a scene. I went down to find Nate looking nothing like his former self. The confident stance had given way to a defeated slouch, but the entitlement was still there just below the surface. "5 minutes," he said when he saw me. "Just give me 5 minutes." I pointed to the security guard. "The restraining order says 500 feet. This is about 15. You want to add violation charges to your record?" "I'm trying to make things right," he insisted. "We're brothers. We're DNA matches. That's it. Mom and Dad are losing everything," he said, his voice breaking. "They'll be on the street soon." "So what?" "Jesus, man, have a heart. They're our parents." I stared at him. Funny how family only matters when you need something. You didn't care about family when your kid was vandalizing my car, or when you were trying to steal my house, or when you were forging documents with my name on them. I made mistakes, okay? I admit it. But they're going to lose everything. "They already did," I replied, "by backing you instead of treating us equally, by mortgaging their future for your failures." He actually had the audacity to look offended. "So that's what this is about? You're punishing them because you think they loved me more?" "No," I said. "I'm protecting myself from people who tried to steal from me. It's that simple." As security escorted him out, he shouted back at me, "You'll regret this. Family is all you have in the end." I went back to my office and closed the door, thought about what he'd said. Family is all you have in the end. Maybe that was true for some people, but not for me. After that, I didn't hear from them again. The next few months were peaceful. I got a promotion at work, finished my house renovations, started dating someone who respected boundaries. I'd take the Dodge out on weekends, engine running like a beast. Sometimes Rick and Uncle Robert would come along. That's the thing about family. It's never about blood. It's about respect. The people who tried to take what was mine weren't family. They were thieves. My house, my car, my life. I earned every bit of it. No one gets to take that from me.